have tons of injuries to talk about up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 and welcome to June. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and someone who is returning from injury. Royce Lewis expected to be reinstated on Tuesday. He has not played since opening day due to a quad injury. The Twins have 6 road games this week against the Yankees and the Pirates. Scott, if you have Royce Lewis, do you start him this week?
Well, third base has been a position that can be difficult to fill off the waiver wire. So probably if you've been stashing Royce Lewis all this time, you're anxious to get him back. And he's, if you happen to have a great alternative, maybe you can afford to play it safe and see if they're ready to run him out there every day. But I've kept him among my top 12 third basemen in my rest of season rankings just because there has been nobody worth moving ahead of him. So yeah, in most cases, I think you can just put Lewis right back in there.
Let's talk about all these pitcher injuries. Jordan Romano was placed on the 15-day IL on Saturday with right elbow inflammation. That is the second time this year that Romano has gone on the IL due to an elbow problem. Yimi Garcia picked up the save on Sunday. He's 24% rostered, and I think the clear backup and one of the top ads if you need saves right now is Yimi Garcia.
Yeah, the only tricky thing about this is that we don't really have an idea how long Jordan Romano is going to be out. No structural damage. It is a recurrence. This is the injury that sidelined him at the start of the season. But we saw recurrence for Josh Lowe for the Rays, and we were thinking, okay, he's going to need even longer this time. And he was back basically within the close to the minimum time frame, it looks like. How many fab dollars do you throw at Yimi Garcia? How desperate do you have to be for saves to pick him up? Those are difficult questions to answer. He's been really dominant out of the bullpen. But if I don't know, if it's a shallower league where somebody like a Trevor McGill is still available, you probably do that instead, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in a 12-team roto league, 3 to 5%, depending on how desperate you are. And then if you play in a 15-team roto league, you probably got to go somewhere closer to like 8 to 10% on Yimi Garcia.
I tried 10% in a league where I have Romano, one of those 15-team roto leagues. Somebody beat me. Wasn't able to get him.
It's tough, man. Ranger Suarez was removed Saturday after being struck on his left hand by a 106 mile per hour comebacker. X-rays came back negative, thankfully, for Ranger Suarez, but there is swelling in his left thumb. Scott, how do you feel about Suarez this week? If you have him, would you take a chance and start him, or just sit him to play it safe?
The update Sunday was that the swelling was down substantially, and the Phillies thought he could pick up a ball in a day or two, which sounds to me like they're anticipating him throwing his side session, and then lining up for a start Saturday. It's a risk, and if you have a deep stable of starting pitchers, there's no reason to risk it. But if you don't, then I think more likely than not, Suarez does take his next turn.
All right, couple of other pitchers who went on the IL. The Padres lost 2 pitchers. Yu Darvish with a left groin strain, Joe Musgrove with right elbow inflammation, the second time Musgrove has been on the IL with an elbow problem this season. Zach Gallen went on the IL with a right hamstring strain. Blake Snell likely to go on the IL with a left groin. Michael Wacha placed on the IL with a non-displaced fracture in his left foot. And Alek Manoah went on the IL with a right elbow sprain, retroactive to May 30th. Some non-injury news. Henry Davis expected to be called up from AAA on Tuesday, and in 22 games at AAA, he was batting .286 with 7 homers in OPS over 1,000. Henry Davis is 17% rostered. Scott, do you think he needs to be re-added in all 2-catcher leagues?
I probably, for the upside, I imagine there's a team or two in a 2-catcher league that could really stand to have an upgrade in that second spot. I couldn't honestly say I'm optimistic. We know we can crush minor league pitching, but between last year and this year, major league pitching has been a very different story. At some point, you think a former number 1 overall pick like Henry Davis is going to figure it out. Maybe this is the time, but odds are against it. Odds are against it.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.